Some people choose to import sugar from Brazil or from India. This goes against the principle of intra-Africa trade. Now, in matters like this, my humble view is that when we sign the bilateral agreements, we must walk the talk. It's very unfortunate that people shift goalposts every now and then when it comes to common trade. As the chairman of NRM Eastern, in charge of the border areas of Busia, Malaba, Ruakaka, and also a patron of the Uganda Clearing and Forwarding Association, there has been this drop of the milk prices is a result of Kenya, the bordering areas, not giving permits to Uganda exporters of milk and allowing them into Kenya. And this goes against the spirit of the East African Community Trade Protocol. Earlier this year, a high-level team from Kenya came and met the president in State House, Nakasero, and gave the president the assurance that Ugandan products will be allowed to move into Kenya in keeping with East African tariff or the East African Common Trade. And to date, as we talk, there are over, if I can give the briefing here based on the facts, over 80 permits of various exporters who have not been allowed or given the import permit into Kenya. Now, this is a very serious matter because it's affecting the common milk producer all over the country. The milk prices were by this year rolling at about 1,400, 1,500 shillings per litre. Now, as I talk, the milk prices are dropping. They have been at, by last week, at 550 shillings per litre. Mark you, from 1,500 to 550 as of last week. This week, and even the subsequent week to follow, the milk prices could drop further to about 400, even 300. This will subject the milk industry, the dairy industry, a very serious shock, especially now when we are encouraging farmers under Bonaba Gagawale, Operation Wealth Creation, PDM, and all the other programs of government where the dairy farmers are borrowed money and moved into the dairy industry. What does that mean? It means that these shocks will definitely percolate down to other subsidiary and auxiliary partners, those who are transporting bulk milk from the milk collection centers, the BCCs, and then the bulk collection centers. This alone will subject the farmer to start either withholding the sale of milk or pouring milk. And definitely they will suffer losses, and the banking sector along the dairy industry will tremendously go down. President Museveni has worked so hard, and government, to encourage the ordinary farmers to increase on their milk yields and to go into alternative means of increasing domestic income, household incomes, by engaging in dairy industry. Now, let me hasten to add that you will note that some of these farmers work with the milk transporters Milk transporters also work with the fuel. They collect fuel, which generates income through the indirect taxes into fuel. You will also note that there are those who are in packaging. There are those who are transporters. All this will suffer very, very heavily. There are those who are engaged in, for example, the powder milk. Those who are producing boxes for powder and so on and so forth. The packaging industry. That will also suffer. The clearing agents and so on and so forth. The milk supply chain is going to suffer tremendously. And I want to caution and say that whereas there may be Kenya's interest or political interest in other areas that we may not understand, the East African common trade is at stake. And therefore, you will note that some of the direct jobs, people who employ through these industries directly, some of them employ up to 500 people, will have to cut jobs, which means that our people are going to lose jobs. And this will definitely amplify the problem even more. I want to say that this being a very serious matter, I want to really call upon Parliament to take full interest in this, especially the milk corridor and parts that produce milk, because the impact is going to be heavy. Two, I also want to call upon the Ministry of Agriculture. My brother, Honorable Tumwevas Frank, and Honorable Bright from Rama, to come out with a very clear statement, because the Dairy Development Authority has not yet come out to explain this. So it is a matter also which needs to be handled at a bilateral level. Maybe the Minister of East African Regional Affairs or East African Affairs, the first Deputy Prime Minister, Right Honorable Kadaga, should take interest. But also I would really urge His Excellency the President to take a keen interest in this matter and handle it at the bilateral level with his colleague, President Ruto of Kenya, to see how this can be handled effectively, because it will lead to a collapse of the dairy sector or the dairy industry in this country. And the farmers will suffer tremendously, will suffer heavily. The losses will be huge. Uganda's dairy products in this country have grown tremendously. Never in the history of this country has Uganda produced so much milk like it does now. So it's important that this matter is handled effectively, because our nation, our country, Uganda, has the comparative advantage in agriculture, and more so in products like milk, sugar, beans, maize, and so on and so forth. But the dairy sector is one that is very important for this country, and it must be taken very, very seriously. My view, again, in this is that it is urgent that we quickly move as a country, as a nation, and handle it and solve this matter at the most appropriate levels of governance, at the bilateral level, in order to ensure that our farmers, the milk farmers, and those involved in the dairy sector and the milk chain do not suffer further losses, especially those who have borrowed money from the banks or microfinance institutions, which loans are at risk of not performing what you call NPAs. And I want this to be taken at the level it deserves, and ensure that our country can be able to grow the economy. I thank you.
For the state, based on my name, I'm the the General Manager. It's a very unfortunate incident or turn of events. We are not able to get permits to export our milk products to Kenya. The other day I saw in the papers, they are saying it is only powdered milk. No, even long life. For the last 2 months, we have not been able to do even a single liter of export to Kenya. As a result of this, given that we are in a peak season in terms of the production, the rains are there, there's a lot of milk out there in the farms, prices have collapsed. We are talking about reduction of milk prices from as high as 1,600 in March to a price of 550 as we speak. That's more than 60% price reduction. Prices are collapsing. We are talking about the entire supply chain. Because at the moment, I have not done UHT production for the last 2 weeks. I'm only doing powder just to sustain the machines running. This has also made me get additional godowns to store this powder. And I think we've been taken to one of the godowns where we're keeping the powder. It's almost getting full. I'm holding almost 15 billion worth of powder milk. Long life is expiring in the warehouse. I think my friend will take you to the UHT warehouse. You'll see powder is about to expire. And this milk has a ready market in Kenya. Brookside, as a regional dominant player, we have a ready market in Kenya. This is not a product that we are taking to Kenya to store. The market is there. Okay? So we are just appealing to the authorities probably from this side. I don't know what they can do and reach out to their counterpart on the other side. Otherwise, the authorities, some are saying it's political, the authorities might think they are punishing Brookside. But ideally, you are punishing the farmers of Uganda. We are buying this milk from Uganda. All the people who are relying on the milk activity, the milk transporters, we have carton suppliers. We have the transporters who are transporting this milk to Kenya. They are now out of business. As we speak, come end of this month, the go down gets full. I might now talk about job losses because I cannot continue buying milk and storing. Okay? So, having said that, we are also saying that a plan we had was to put up to expand the facility, to put up more investment up to about 38 billion that was planned to be put up as additional investment just to improve on the facility and to continue producing more milk products. This is already at stake as we speak. Okay? Yes, the government, URA, we pay almost 10 billion worth of taxes every year. That again gonna be lost by the government. So the government needs really to address this issue seriously. Yeah.
How much milk do you buy and from where?
We buy on a daily basis. We are buying 300,000 liters. Ideally, 300,000 liters. Out of the 300,000 liters, 200,000 is put into powder. The rest is put into long life.
So the 80 permits, they from you?
Yes, the 80 permits that are paid in the system are our permits exclusive. Yeah. So
what about the other companies?
Yes, the other companies, we are being told they are getting permits. Okay, we are also hearing there are also other companies that are getting delays to get these permits. But to us, we are saying, give us the permits, the farmer to stop suffering.
Now, the ones that are delaying, why are they delaying?
No, we don't know.
Which are those who are delaying?
Kenya Dairy Board is the authority that gives a
which are the companies that are delaying to get permits?
I don't have the specific details, but the other day I had one of the processors in Amman, they have stopped producing.
Who is that?
I think that should be Rainbow, if I'm not mistaken.
Rainbow, is it Ugandan?
Yes, Uganda.
When you estimate what are the losses currently, and what do you estimate of the losses? Suppose these people don't give you a license in a short period of time. What is your estimation as far as losses are concerned?
The losses are immense. Because here you are talking about the lost revenue, okay? The 300,000 liters. Locally, Uganda doesn't consume a lot of milk, okay? So, yes, I can continue doing local production, but so insignificant. So in terms of revenue, we are talking about on a daily, 500 million daily. We are talking about the job losses. I have more than 500 employees. 98% of these employees are Ugandans. Okay? What is at stake here? Job losses. We are talking about the supply chain locally, the transporters who are bringing this meat from Barara, Zimbabwe, all that network. All those transporters are grounded. They are all Ugandans. We are talking about the cattle manufacturers, talking about the people who are supplying my boilers with biomass. So you can't quantify, but by just mentioning, it is an immense loss.
Ever since the ban was installed, is the production still the same or there is a reduction in production?
By almost 80%. Yeah. Reduction in production. I've already mentioned that we are not doing UHT production for the last 2 weeks. Okay?
Should we assume the ban is all about the quality of our milk from Uganda?
No, not at all. Our milk has been certified by UNBS. Our milk has been certified on the other side by the Kenyan National Bureau of Standards. And we have permits from the relevant authorities, KBS, UNBS, so quality is not an issue.
So if the quality is good, what could be the cause?
Kenya Dairy Board, once again, they are the ones who are in charge of giving these permits. Maybe I don't know whether you can reach out to them.
As milk dealers, I believe you have an association that governs you people, or that brings you people together.
Yes.
Have you ever tried at a moment to come together or probably to meet any government official?
Yes, we have done. The Ministry of Agriculture, they are already aware, Ministry of Trade, they are already aware of this issue.
What was their response?
They are looking into it. And I believe they are looking into it, but now we are calling for a speedy resolution.
We signed papers as Africa, and we're looking at widening the African market. We're looking at deepening the African market. But you find that we have a lot of sugar, for example, in Uganda, with a common price that matches the international price. But some people choose to import sugar from Brazil or from India. This goes against the principle of intra-Africa trade. Now, in matters like this, my humble view is that when we sign the bilateral agreements, we must walk the talk. It's very unfortunate that people shift goalposts every now and then when it comes to common trade. Now, all of us as East African nations or African nations are trying as much as possible to look at ways and means of increasing household incomes and to reduce poverty in our households and to ensure that we increase incomes. This is the principle of the East African bilateral trade. Therefore, anybody who goes against it and keeps shifting goalposts is going against the letter and the spirit of the East African common market and trade.
Are there any direct involvements with the Kenyan authorities?
I think that I will leave this to the government. Mine is as a concerned person. First of all, as a leader of the party in Eastern, where I understand that many people have had their merchandise stopped, or you have over 80 vehicles or applications which have been held back. And this is now coming to the second, going to the third month. This is a dangerous trend. And as I said, it is dangerous in that those who have invested heavily in the dairy sector are going to suffer tremendous losses, especially now, post-COVID, when people had borrowed heavily, both with the banks or financial institutions, with microfinance institutions, and also now where we are focusing on increasing on production at household levels. This defeats the whole spirit, and it comes in at a time when you'll find that government is adjusting heavily on domestic expenditure, and it is very important that we work collectively to address this matter. I'm very sure that there is something that needs to be done across Kenya, but it's also important that now that we have increased the milk production in the country, never in the history of this country has Uganda produced so much milk like this. It has never happened. And this is a result of peace and stability and good governance under General Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. But those who are trying to impede this spirit and this momentum that the country has been growing this has got to be addressed at a bilateral level. Secondly, you will note that Uganda and President Museveni had flown to Algeria recently, where they signed a bilateral agreement between Algeria and Uganda. When we're looking at alternative markets, we must first of all ensure that the existing markets are also satisfied. That is the principle which I think I follow, and I agree with the President that that is the direction we must follow. But I think that when you look at the direction our brothers and sisters are taking in Kenya, it is not healthy, and it is definitely going to hurt the dairy industry in this country.